Hello and welcome. In today's video we are talking all about eyeshadow palettes. So we are ranking 22 of the best palettes for 2022 in my opinion. So if you like that kind of content, then make sure you stay tuned. Hello my friends and welcome. Once again we're talking about eyeshadow palettes. You know it's my favorite thing. So it's that time of year, time to do the best of the best for the year. So we are talking 22 of the best eyeshadow palettes for 2022. Now again, these are ranked by what I like, what I prefer. So you know, to each his own. It's just my opinion, my thoughts. So if you do like everything about eyeshadow palettes though and are excited to hear what I ranked and how I ranked these, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below, turn on all notifications, and otherwise let's just get into the video because there's a whole lot of palettes to talk about and there's some good ones here, so stay tuned. All right, so I'm going to go from the not the worst, because none of these are bad. Obviously, they're my top 22 for the year. So we're going to go from number 22 to number 1. So my favorite, my least favorite to my most favorite out of the ranking. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. So what I ranked at number 22, and it's a great palette, nothing against it, but compared to all these other ones, it just doesn't quite compare. But we have the Sephora Pocket Palette. I've talked a lot about this. It is the cold brown tones. I really love this palette if you are more of a cooler toned eyeshadow lover like I am. You love taupes, those kind of things, and I think you would really enjoy this palette. It's a great palette. It's a great everyday palette, a great take on the go palette. Highly recommend, but again, this is number 22. But it's still a great palette. Now I'm probably just going to list the numbers as we go because I'm going to lose track as we go. I'm just telling you right now and I don't want to mess up the numbers, so I will just list them in here. So second on my list, or number 21, would be the Wet n Wild Always Naked palette. I think this is a gorgeous everyday palette, and just for the price and still how well these like metallic satin shades work. The only thing is pressed glitter. They could have gotten rid of that, but otherwise I just love the performance of this palette for the price. For like $9, I think it's just a wonderful palette. I think it's such good quality at the price. So this would be my number 21 palette. Next we have Tarte. Again, this is that duo pack that came out for the holidays. This is the Gilded palette. I just really like this palette. I don't know, when I did my look, a couple of looks with this, the way they turned out, it just really made my eyes pop. The performance was really good. Longevity was good. I was really highly impressed with this palette. So I'm so happy I picked them up, and I believe I picked them up on the sale. I think I got them during the Sephora VIB sale, if I remember correctly, but so glad I picked these up. I think they're such pretty palettes for the price. So I was definitely surprised and highly recommend. Next on my list here, we have Huda Beauty, the Empowered palette. It is a pretty palette if you're really into like warmer tones. I mean, I know there are some like cooler neutral tones in here, but if you like that deep, more sultry kind of look, more smoky eye, that kind of thing, you will love this palette. Now this shade here is that special one. It's almost like a gel with, like the more metallic, combination in there, but it's such a pretty shade. I'm so glad you didn't do just that weird gel by itself shade, but yeah, this one's definitely better as far as that. And it does have two cream shadows, which I haven't actually used the cream shadows yet, but for like liner or anything like that, but it is a really pretty palette. I don't like it as much as Rose Quartz. I don't think anything will top that from last year, but it still is a pretty palette and do recommend. Next we have ColourPop Not a Box of Chocolates. This one really surprised me. It's a really pretty palette. Now again, they're all a little bit deeper shades, so you're not going to get a really light look with this, but I was highly impressed with the way these metallic shades performed. I still, ColourPop, I think, their mattes are definitely good for the price. But yeah, I think it's a really pretty palette. I was really surprised by the performance of this palette, so I do recommend this one for sure. Next we have Sigma, the new Mod palette. This one, I just really like the color story in here. I do like Sigma's eyeshadow performance, their formula. I really do like that overall. And this is just such a pretty color story. I really like those mauve-y, rosy tones in there. I think it's a really nice palette, and the packaging I think is always just so cute too. So I think I love their attention to detail on a lot of these. So I highly recommend that one. Next, another indie brand. We have Gourmand Blonde Girls, the Spooked palette. I did a whole review on this for Halloween. Oh, such a pretty palette. Now, the only reason this isn't like higher up on the list is just this color story. It's just not something I'm going to reach into routinely, but I do say the looks that I got with this, I really, really enjoyed them. The performance was great. The formula is wonderful. Some multi-chromes in here. It's such a pretty palette. I will say that. Now, again, not a color story I'm going to reach for, you know, often, but it's beautiful nonetheless. So highly recommend. Check them out. Next on my list here, we have some Pat McGrath. Now, I did kind of group these together as well. We have the Mothership Mega Celestial Nirvana palette. So here's the bigger all-in-one palette. Very, very pretty palette. The metallics in here are really, really nice. You know, the mattes for the most part are really nice. I think the only one that was kind of for me, this reddish shade is a little bit... But yeah, but no, other than that, I mean, it's just not a shade I'm going to wear very much. But other than that, the performance is really, really nice. The metallics are really nice in here. And just for the price of these bigger palettes like this, I just feel like you're getting more for your money with these. So definitely recommend. And then I did get the two 5-pan palettes too under the Celestial Nirvana. Now I have the Nude Allure, the really pretty one. I definitely do like this color story, but if I had to pick my favorite out of the two, the Bronze Bliss is just my favorite. I love the tones in here. The shade here in the center is just insane. It is metallic, glitzy, glittery. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. Now that sparkles. It's a beautiful palette. Just overall, Pat McGrath, I do like the holiday collection she did this year. So next we have another indie brand, Sugar Drizzle Polish. I have the Sugar Dreams palette. Love this palette, probably my favorite of the two, just based on the tones. I just like the tones of this one. And then the MILF, the Man I Like Frogs palette, another beautiful palette. You know, I love my purples, got some blues and greens in there. Another beautiful palette. So I definitely highly recommend checking out Sugar Drizzle Polish if you haven't already, but definitely have enjoyed these palettes. Next we have Lunar Beauty, the Nude Prism palette, and just rank this one a little bit higher. Just again, this is going to be an everyday palette for me. I can wear this every day. You have your mattes on the top and the bottom. It's kind of arranged like Simply Posh, how they do their palette, and then the sparkly shades in the center there. But yeah, this palette is gorgeous. The quality is really nice. Formula I really enjoy and definitely recommend. If you haven't checked out Lunar Beauty, this would be a good one to start with for your everyday type of palette. Next, we have another indie brand, Blend Bunny Cosmetics. We have the Dollhouse palette. I just think this is a beautiful palette. I know I've talked about this before, but I just love the way they arranged this one too, with the lighter, medium, and dark tone mattes there in the center. We got some, you know, shimmery, glittery shades at the top as well as at the bottom, and I just love the color story. I think it's really, really pretty and just really good quality. Definitely highly recommend this brand and this palette overall. Next, we have another indie brand, Simply Posh Cosmetics, the Picking Peonies palette. You know, I've talked about this palette a lot. I really do enjoy this palette. This to me is like the type of warm tone palette I'm going to go for, and I really like how user-friendly they make this with your mattes, again, at the top and the bottom for lighter and darker tones. So basically a whole column. I mean, you know, you can make one look out of each column or mix and match the columns, you know, however you want to do. But if you're just somebody that needs inspiration and just, you know, ease of use, they make it very simple for you. And the performance of these is really, really nice. And duochromes in the center, always love their duochromes. They're really, really pretty. So highly recommend that one. Next, again, these indie brands, they've killed it this year. I don't know what to say. Next, we have Adept Cosmetics, the Minka palette. I think this palette is gorgeous. Not going to be your everyday type of palette, but definitely if you want a holiday palette, a going out palette, you know, with just sparkly, glittery, beautiful shades, and you just, you know, just really want to be the spotlight of the show, these will definitely get you there. But yes, it is a gorgeous palette. I do like they included a couple of mattes there to really give you a whole look. Definitely, of course, you can use other mattes, but at least gives you a base to work with. One thing I will warn you about though is some of these shades do definitely stay in the eye, so if you're very sensitive, this definitely might not be the palette for you. But again, if you want a beautiful holiday or special occasion palette, this is it. She's your girl, telling you. Beautiful. I did a whole review on this, so if you want to check it out, I will link the video in the cards and below, so you can check that out and get more thoughts and more in-depth view on this palette. So check it out. Next, we have Natasha Denona, the Retro Glam palette. You know, I had to throw that one in here. Yes, so if you're somebody that's just into more muted tones, you know, you don't like that really high shine or just really deep, really intense looks, this is a great palette for you to try. And the tones are really pretty in here. This would be really good for the holiday as well. Again, if you're more into muted tones, don't want anything as sparkly and glam and, you know what I mean, intense, this would be a great holiday palette to try out. So highly recommend. And I did a whole review on this one, so I'll link that one as well. So you can check that out if you'd like. Yeah, get my full thoughts on it. Oh, next, you know, she was in here, Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau palette. The moment I saw this palette, I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting my hands on this. But I think if you're my skin tone or lighter and just, again, kind of like a little bit more muted greens and those kind of colors, yeah, I think you would really, really enjoy this. If you're like a more muted, warm tone palette kind of person like I am, I think you'd really, really enjoy this. But I think the formulation here is really, really nice. The color story is really pretty. I just really enjoyed this palette and so glad it's in my collection. Highly recommend. Another indie brand here, Adept Cosmetics again. We have the Heather Austin palette out of Adept Cosmetics. This is definitely my favorite palette still. I just love the formulation in here, the color story, just the whole layout of the palette. I think it's just so diverse. It has so much versatility in it. I just really enjoy this palette, and these multi-chrome shades in there are just so smooth and beautiful. I just highly recommend this palette. Check out Adept Cosmetics. This would be my #1 recommendation from their company. All right, so the next one here I'm going to group together. I have Gloss Guides. I have the Vintage Glam Remixed palette. I've talked about this more recently too. Beautiful palette. I love this palette. I think it's gorgeous. These tones in here, oh my gosh, talking about intense. Those are so intense. Those metallics in there are gorgeous. They're just amazing. Highly recommend this palette. And then a little bit cooler tone version basically of that palette is the Smoke and Mirrors, another gorgeous palette. This one's newer to me. Already done a couple of looks with it though, and I can tell you it's gorgeous and same quality as that Vintage Glam. So out of the ones that I picked up, which I think I have 5 of the palettes now, these are my 2 favorites from Gloss Guides Cosmetics. And I definitely recommend you check them out. Their shipping is a little bit expensive, so I recommend if you want to pick something up, pick a couple of things up at least. That way you're getting more, you know what I mean, and only paying shipping one time. So, but I do recommend checking them out. All right, we are up to, I think now the top 5, if I did this correctly. Hopefully I did. But in the top 5, we have Sydney Grace and the Be Mine palette. I've talked about this a lot too. This is just a gorgeous everyday palette. I took this on vacation with me. I was so glad I had it. But again, these are my types of tones. These kind of more muted, softer tones. Even if they're a little bit deeper, they're still softer. Like I can't explain it, but I love this palette. Love the tones in here. The matte and metallics are both gorgeous, blend well, perform well, last a good amount of time. Just a wonderful formula, and you know I just love Sydney Grace overall, so I thought this was a gorgeous palette they came out with this year, so highly recommend. Oh, you knew this one was in here too. Patrick Ta, Major Dimension 2, the Rose Edit. You knew this was in here. I love this palette. I think it's gorgeous. You have your 2 cream shadows in here under this little lid, which I don't really use a whole lot. Not that they're not good, but I just don't think about it. I don't know. I'm just not into the cream shadow thing yet. I just, in my mind, I don't know, whatever. But these mattes are just buttery smooth. They're amazing. And then these metallic shades, there's some topper shades in there, shifty shade. Oh, it's just gorgeous. I love this palette. It's definitely one of my favorite of the year. Next, we have Odens Eye. Oh my gosh, if you were able to get your hands on these, I hope you're truly enjoying these. But we have the Christmas Eve palette, which is a little bit more, for the most part, a little bit cooler toned. But yeah, the color mix in here, I just think they did an amazing job. Just the whole curation of this palette, the overall aesthetic, the whole vibe. I think they did an amazing job. And then the Merry Christmas palette, gorgeous as well. Oh my gosh. So if you're into more warmer tones, that kind of thing, I think you would just love this palette. I think it's gorgeous. The formulations are amazing. Performance is amazing. I just love them. Just the whole aesthetic of both these palettes is just amazing. Love it. And then the top 2, Natasha Denona, My Dream palette. Yep, you knew this was in here. But yeah, I just think of the ones that came out this year for Natasha Denona, this is just the one that I'm going to get the most use out of. It's just the most, I don't want to say versatile, but just, I don't know, to me it's just one that I will use the most. I've gotten the most use out of this one. I love the tones in here. She has a multi-chrome in here, so just the versatility of this palette. I really have enjoyed this palette. The whole My Dream collection I've really truly enjoyed, so highly recommend that if you haven't checked it out. Well worth it. And then my number one, if you haven't figured it out by as much as I've talked about this palette, Glaminatrix, the Nearly Natural palette. So, oh my gosh, she is beautiful. I love this palette. I love the color story. I love the blends of tones in here. The metallic shades in here, they're so glittery and just amazing. Just like so shiny, beautiful. Lasting power is great. The mattes and metallics perform really well. Out of the Glaminatrix palettes I have, this is definitely my favorite. But again, a lot of that just has to do with my love of neutral tone eyeshadows. That just makes this my perfect eyeshadow palette. So again, the other ones they have from Glaminatrix are gorgeous as well, but again, this one just speaks to me the most. It's just my color story. So, but yeah, so that is it. That is number one. So I'm sure you could have guessed that by now as much as I talked about this, but yeah, that is my number one palette of the year. So yes, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Turn on all notifications. Let me know down below what your favorites of the year were. Did you try any of these palettes? Are any of these on your wish list? Do you want to try them now? I'd love to know. Leave me a comment. Otherwise, I do hope you have an amazing day and hope to see you in my next video. Bye! Never mind. Start over. Delete. Totally messed that up. Totally went into the wrong palette. Next we have Sigma, the new mod palette. I always know that. Next I think I did. Did I? I think I did a whole review on this. So if you want to check out, again, out of Heather Ost, or we have Signique, the multi-chrome in here. I think there's a multi-chrome. Maybe there's not a multi-chrome in here. My neutral tone, loving, you know. Ooh, goodness. Okay, we're getting there. Doing pretty good. I'll take it. All right. Woohoo! Thank you, thank you. See you next time. Very good. Well, happy holidays. However you celebrate them. Happy holidays. See you next time. Bye.